Hello, hello, welcome to another episode of Soulpreneur Scaling Stories. I am here with a very special guest today, Andria Singletary, who is a podcast host and strategist. I'm really excited because I have worked with her personally and I know that she's amazing and I've seen some pieces of her story and I cannot wait for her to share with you. So hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to dive in, so shall we?
Yes.
Awesome. So please introduce yourself and tell everybody what your business looks like today.
Yeah, so again, my name is Andria Singletary. A little bit about me. I am a wife. I'm a mama. I have two little ones, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I am the host of the Mama Turned Mompreneur podcast. And I have a podcast production business as well as coaching business. And it's all under the brand Mama Turned Mompreneur. So today I support mom business owners with launching a podcast as well as managing their podcast, but more so I help bring in that strategy piece in how they can effectively use their podcast to generate leads and nurture and convert their audience into their paid offers and programs. And then I have my coaching side of things where I support newer mom business owners with basically hitting the ground running with their business, but also not burning themselves out, still being able to be, these present mamas while building these successful businesses.
Such important things. And let me tell you, as somebody who one day was like, I'm going to have a podcast, it was like, I had worked, as somebody who's a service provider back in the day when I was a VA, I had worked on some, a little bit with some clients' podcasts, but actually starting one from scratch, girl, this was so much work to get it up and running. You guys, it's amazing. It's actually one of my favorite things to do now. Now I'm oh, and these conversations light me up so much and they're so much fun and I get so much out of them and I love sharing, with my audience and all of that. But girl, starting this podcast was there was a lot. There was a lot.
Yes. Starting it is probably the hardest hurdle to get over, but once you get over that, it's smooth sailings from there.
Yeah. For me as a systems girly, once I put everything in ClickUp and had all my SOPs and everything, now it runs, but it was a lot. So bless you and what you do because it is much, much needed. Okay, so you're doing amazing things today, and I love for myself hearing and sharing people's journeys because I feel it opens up so much, especially with people who are service providers, virtual assistants. I feel a lot of it is oh, well, I want to grow and scale and do things in my business. And the only option people think is oh, I just need to get more clients. That's all that's out there for me. So I love sharing how people got started in one place and now they're doing these amazing things. So when you started, tell us a little bit about that, when you started your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship. So prior to starting my business, I worked in the early childhood field. So I was a preschool director and then got pregnant with my son. And while I was actually on maternity leave, the school shut down. And this was during the height of the pandemic and everything. And so I was okay, I'll be a stay-at-home mom, but knowing who I am, I'm very ambitious, I'm very driven. I was I need to do something for me. So I started out with creating a mom blog, and I'm oh, maybe I can be a mom influencer. And I tried that for a second, wasn't for me, but I really enjoyed building my website. And so I started offering that as a service. It initially started with a family member, and then I supported other people too. And then I started researching how to really create a business as a mom. And I came across virtual assistants. So I dove into that and was literally offering all of the things, everything from web design to blog copywriting to general admin. And it was a lot. I was pulled in so many different directions, and it's each of those things has their own specialties. And so it's like changing one hat, going from one project to the other. And it was just a lot for me mentally, emotionally, and everything. And so I was like, okay, I need to niche. I need to find something that actually lights me up. And at that time, during the pandemic, I started listening to podcasts, more so like motherhood ones, because I was by myself in a sense. Like I had my husband and my mom, but like that normal support you would get as a new mom, I didn't get that because we were all social distancing. And so I was looking for that community aspect, but also just to normalize a lot of the things that I was experiencing as a mom. And so really got into podcasts and started to wonder, like, who supports these women with getting their podcasts out into the world? So went down another Google rabbit hole, discovered podcast management, found Lauren Wrighton's podcast manager program. I really resonated with her because she was also a mom and built this successful business as a podcast manager. Took her program and literally finished the program. At the time I was pregnant with my daughter. I finished the program a week before I went into labor. Which yeah, it was, I mean, I wasn't sleeping much. I was in my third trimester miserable. So I was like, might as well do something productive, right?
I love your like, okay, well, I'm going to learn a whole new thing while I'm in my third trimester. You're like, let me finish this last module, like as my water breaks.
Pretty much that's how it was. But I did that, and it was nice because one of my virtual assistant clients at the time, she also had a podcast, and so I pretty much just transitioned into her podcast manager. Nice. And I've just been doing that ever since then. So that was what, 2022. I've been doing it, and it's grown, it's evolved a lot, and it lights me up. I love supporting my clients and just getting to work with such amazing women, and just the knowledge and the experience and everything that they're sharing in their podcast. And it's like, well, I get to listen to it before everyone else does. So I love it.
And while you were, so you also offer, like, and we'll talk about the podcast management umbrella. I know under that umbrella, you offer different things. How did you figure out, or what was underneath the thought process of, oh, I can do this thing, that, there's so many different ways to create your offers, to organize your business. And I see a lot of people who do sort of like one road, they're like, I manage podcasts and that's it. And you have numerous different things that you're doing. So I'd love to hear a bit about that journey in that piece of it.
Yeah, so I am really big on connecting with my community, and they tell me what they want. So one thing I found a lot with the women in my community was that, one, they really struggled with how to not just plan their podcast content, but plan podcast content that is, in a sense, going to funnel their listeners into their offers. Yeah. And they were really getting caught up on like, well, what do I talk about? I don't have enough content. I don't know what to say. And so that's how I came up with my power hour sessions. At first they were called like strategy sessions, but everybody was like, well, what is that? Like, it was just too broad. So I'm like, okay, let me get more specific. And so I have my podcast content planning power hour sessions, and they love it. And I use it two ways. So like for people who have like a public or a traditional podcast, but also those who have a private podcast, because that's something more people are starting to use either as a free resource or as like a low ticket offer and different things like that. But again, it's like, what do I talk about? How do I strategically plan this content so that it's going to direct people where I want them to go? So that was something, like I said, that came up a lot amongst my community, just a lot of the questions I was getting and where people were getting hung up. And I was also finding that people would start these podcasts and then they would stop because they either didn't know what to talk about or they weren't seeing that return on investment. And it was because they weren't strategically planning their podcast content. So that's like one of the things I created. And then I kind of went into coaching because, again, it was something that my community was asking me. Like, I literally had someone DM me like, okay, I know you support with podcasts, but do you also help with planning out offers? And I'm like, well, it's not something I've done officially, but I know how to strategically plan and really go to my community. And that's the biggest thing. Like, your community, they're going to tell you what they want from you, but you have to be engaging with them. You have to build those connections so that way they do tell you what they want. And so now I'm also like building out that side of my business and everything. But yeah, it's my community. They give me the ideas, they ask the questions. I'm like, oh, I can build an offer around that for you guys. So.
There's so many things I love about this. One is that I want to say is that, so you helped me and with my private podcast that I just launched. So I'm going to,
Yes.
a little note here for those of you listening, because if you want to see what she does, the proof is in the pudding. I have a trailer episode right before this. No, that's a lie. I have a trailer episode. You scroll down, look at my thing, private podcast, Secrets to Soulful Scaling. It's really, really good, and I'm really excited. And the reason I'm so excited is because you helped me to figure out what to say and get all like my thoughts together, because it's true. It is a bit overwhelming. You're like, well, this thing is, I have so many things that I want to say or teach people or talk about, and having somebody to help to gather all of your stream of consciousness thoughts and put them in like an actual like order that makes sense is amazing, right? It just made everything flow so much better. So can highly relate to this. And then the other thing that came up for me while you were talking is listening to your community. Yes, and what did you feel, or how did you know when they were sort of like, oh, do you do this or do you do that? How did you know that was the right thing or something that you were interested in offering? Because not everything people want is something that you want to do.
Yeah, so it's funny because I technically had already been doing these things. My monthly management clients, I coach them monthly. It's not just focusing on their podcast or growing their podcast. We talk about their offers and how we're going to connect their podcast content to those offers. I also coach them on what to actually say to sell in their podcast content and to do it in a way that feels good to them. So it's things that I stopped and thought about. I'm like, well, wait, I'm already doing it. Why not just build an offer around it? And so that was more so what I looked at. And then if it was something that I either don't do or I don't want to do, I have people in my network that I'm able to refer them to. But it's more so like taking a step back, especially like if I'm having people ask me over and over again, okay, it's like, well, let's really see like what are they asking of me? And is it something that I can realistically do? Do I feel comfortable doing it? Is it something that's in my area of expertise, or is there someone that I can refer them to?
Yeah, and I love this referral piece as well, because this is a way that you're also serving your community. A lot of people get nervous and say, oh, I'm going to lose this business. I should offer everything under the sun because then I want to be the person who does it all, or I'm going to lose this client, which is a scarcity situation, right? And actually being like, oh no, this is an amazing person who does this thing that secretly I don't actually want to do, is such a good way to serve your clients. And they're going to remember that because they're going to get good service. And then you get to stay in your zone of genius doing the things that you love and still growing that way. And you're not going to quote unquote lose them. And you're building your community even further because now these other people are like, oh, she refers to me, and so you're building up your referral system. So you're kind of building things up all around. So I wanted to note that because I feel like people do get nervous when they feel like, oh, I should take on all of these things. When it's not aligned with you, then that could lead you down a place that you don't want to be.
Yeah, the thing is like there's enough clients for everyone.
Yeah.
We don't have to compete or anything like that. And it's so funny, me and another podcast strategist, we are actually collaborating. Like we announced we're doing a collaboration. And people are probably like, but you're both podcast strategists. Like, why would you guys collaborate? And it's like, well, yes, we are, but we're both unique. We're both different. We serve different audiences and we have a really great friendship and everything. So it's like, we would never, do anything to hurt each other's businesses or anything like that. And I think it's just like changing that mindset. Like you said, that getting away from that scarcity mindset. There's enough space for all of us here.
Yeah, 100%. And the more that you give, the more helpful you are, the more that you're in that sort of like gracious attitude and that feeling that the more that you're going to receive, because that's how this all works, So if you're feeling scarce, then that's what's going to be, that's what you're going to be surrounded by. And if you're feeling abundant, then that's what's going to happen. So yeah, totally. And I love that you're collaborating with somebody who does quote unquote the same thing that you do, right? But people are going to be attracted to each one of you for different reasons. It's going to benefit the both of you, one way or the other, So
Yes.
yeah, so I love that you're not like scared or stepping away from that. So encouraging more people to do things like that is really, really important.
Yes.
So along this journey, right, from where you were to where you are now, let's talk about hurdles. So what has been your biggest hurdle in this scaling journey so far?
Oh gosh. So earlier this year, I fully transitioned into podcast production. So I let go of all of my virtual assistant clients and everything. And I was like all gung ho for it. I'm like, I can do this. And I did not get any sales. I had no leads. Like, it was just a desert. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to get clearer on my messaging. Maybe I need to tweak my offers even more. And like, I did this probably for the first 3 or 4 months of the year. And then I realized, one, I needed to hire a coach. And two, my problem was that I wasn't getting visible enough. And so I was like, okay, what can I do to get visible? Like, I have my podcast. One of the things I wasn't effectively using it as part of my business. I was talking about everything and kind of shying away from talking about podcasting because I didn't feel confident enough to like really own it at the time. And I was like, okay, I have to get over that. If I want to be known as the go-to person for podcasting for mom business owners, then I need to own that. And so I really started getting strategic in my podcast content, but I also started leveraging collaboration. So guesting on more podcasts. I discovered bundles and started participating in bundles and doing all of these different things. And I hired a coach. And because of that, I was able to, I had my first like 4-figure sales day with a new offer that I launched. And I started like doing more. I started gaining more clients, hitting my income goals and different things like that. But it's like I had to make those changes. I think the problem was that like as a virtual assistant, it was so easy to scale that business.
Right.
People, like I had to start turning people away. And when I niched down into podcast production, it's like, wait, what is going on? Like I was thinking, oh, it's going to be just as easy. And it's like, well, no, you have to really put yourself out there and get your name out there as the person for podcasting, build that authority and everything. And so really took like a major mindset shift and doing things differently. But I would say like that was the biggest hurdle. So like that niching down and building my authority, getting my name out there and different things like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's true, right? When you're just, I'm a regular old service provider, I only need X number of clients, like the marketing is not so much when you're a general VA or an OBM. So I'm an OBM as well. So an online business manager, you don't need to market all of the time to do these things. Like that's not a huge piece of your business. And this is true when you're like, oh, I'm feeling this calling to do something bigger, to do something better. I feel aligned with this new thing. And that thing does require you to tell people you're doing it and to consistently do that and to be vulnerable and to step in front of the camera and to really own it, like you were saying. And that is a huge mindset thing. And especially when you're feeling really good and comfortable with what you were doing before, and now you're like, oh, I'm this new thing, and then it's like all those imposter syndrome things come back, right? they come back into play because you're like, oh crap, like I thought I was good, and you're like, now I gotta do this again. So I'm curious what you did, because I'm curious what you did in order to also, like, mindset wise, in order to shift your mindset, because this is a huge piece of this as well.
So one of the things was that I knew I could not go back to a 9-to-5. I have never been good at a 9-to-5 in the sense of working under someone. I can't. I've always bumped heads with my bosses. And so that was like a big, that was a big motivator for me to like, okay, you got to get this together, because you cannot go back to working a 9 to 5. But also too, I wanted to be home with my kids. And so I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. And I realized like, I can't figure it out on my own. Like I can't afford to waste time bumping through the dark trying to make it work when I know I can pay someone to tell me X, Y, and Z, and I will get there a lot quicker. And so I think that was like kind of that really helped me get it together. But also too, it was like financial pressure for me and my husband and everything. And it's like, something has to change. Like I was at my breaking point. So I would say that was the biggest thing. And then as I started working with a coach and doing these different things, like that helped me improve my mindset. So it wasn't that I had that mindset shift, I would say, like before. It was like, okay, the pressure is on. Either you're going to go get a 9 to 5 or you're going to make this work. And it's like, well, I'm not doing the 9 to 5 thing. I'm going to make this work. And one of the things that I did work on with my coach was mindset. So really like looking at my skill set and looking at what I have to offer and everything, and learning how to block out those negative thoughts as they are coming up. It's like, well, no, wait, look at what you've already done. Look at what you've already accomplished and everything. So like really honing in on that positive self-talk, that's something that I've really learned to incorporate, especially like anytime like something negative comes up. It's like, wait, nope, I've done this, I've done that. Yeah. I'm going to be able to do this too. So,
and I want to elaborate on this because this is one of my favorite things that I love to teach as well, that I love to guide my clients through is, so back in the day, I was a clinical psychologist and working with people who have depression and all of these things. So it's very similar, the process that you use when you have these negative thoughts, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, or imposter syndrome, it doesn't matter. It's all it's the same steps. So it's really the first step that's so important is actually just recognizing that this is like this automatic thought that pops up. And I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that these are thoughts that are not true. They just kind of accept them as fact. When in actuality, it's really your ego, your nervous system, whatever you want to call it, your brain, really trying to keep you safe. And saying, oh, this is a thing I haven't done before. And so let's not do that because this is like, jumping into the lion's mouth because we don't know what's going to happen. So you have all of these automatic thoughts that come up. And the first step is to recognize that, oh, this is like this imposter syndrome thought that's happening because I'm doing something new, because I'm evolving, because I'm expanding. And side note, these thoughts happen because you're evolving and because you're expanding, which is amazing. So even like changing how we think about these thoughts as well. And be like, oh, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, right? But we're not going to do it. We're not going to let you be there. So then it's like exactly what you were saying. It's like, okay, this thought is happening, but is this actually true? And what's the evidence? Right? Like, what's the evidence that tells me this is true? And what's the evidence against it? And just like repeating this process, and it helps you to get through the other side so much faster. So, and this is a huge shift and a really, really important skill for people to learn along this entrepreneurial journey, because this is not the only time that you're going to be shifting things, right? Like, you're going to continue to grow and evolve, and these things are going to keep happening. And not you, but you and universal you, like everybody. So like, I think this is one of the most important things that you can learn is the mindset and what to do when these thoughts come up and how to keep going. And I love that your why was so strong that you were like, not like failing is just not an option. Like, I'm going to do this no matter what, which is really, really inspiring. And I love that.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So how about tips? So perhaps we've sort of touched on this, but I also love to share and have my guests share along this scaling journey and this growth journey, what are some really important tips that you've learned to be able to grow and to continue to do this?
So one, like what we just talked about, I feel like mindset is the biggest piece, because literally it will determine whether or not you take action. So, and I know people are sick of hearing like, oh, work on your mindset, work on your mindset. But I promise you, you are not going to hit those goals if you don't focus on your mindset, because our thoughts literally can keep us from trying out different things, from putting ourselves out there, from, you know, connecting with a potential client and different things like that. So I would say number one, that is the biggest thing. The other thing is too, is like, don't be afraid to try out new things. I feel like one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is that you can try out new offers. You can do new things, and it can be scary because you don't know if it's going to succeed or flop. But at the end of the day, if you don't actually take action, you won't know if it's going to succeed or if it's going to flop. So I feel like that's a big thing too. And another thing is that diversifying your offers. That was something when I first started my business, I didn't fully understand. And I've really learned like this year alone, like the importance of diversifying your offers. Like, yes, you know, you want to have your high ticket offers, but at the end of the day, you don't only have high ticket people in your audience. You have other people who they would absolutely love to work with you, but they're not at that point yet where they can afford or invest in high tickets. So you can have lower offers where it's like an entry point for them and everything. So like really kind of changing your mindset around that, because you'll have different coaches telling you different things like, oh, only do high ticket, only do low ticket. And it's like, well, no, there's no one way to do it. I really just like that idea of having these different offers to meet my audience's needs and everything. So that's been really big for me in my business. And then building community, like networking, connecting with other business owners. It can get really lonely as an entrepreneur. And I've even found as a mom business owner, it can get even lonelier. And so having people who are there to support you, who you can vent to when you've had a rough week and everything, who can, you know, talk you off of the ledge and different things like that. Because we've all had those days where we're like, I'm burning my business down. So having that community support and just, it's made a world of a difference, and it's made this journey so much easier.
So many good points. So many good points there. So the one of the things that I want to highlight is how you were talking about diversifying your offers, and especially how you were saying that this feels really aligned with you. And you are so focused on your community and serving your community, which is really beautiful. Like I know that you really care. Like that really comes out, right? That like it's really important to you and you want to serve them. So, and noting that that might not be right for everybody, right? And so like you're right. So some people say this is the way to do it. Just offer high ticket. This is the other way to do it. Have this, you know, whole journey, the client journey that you can offer. Take them through everything. And the most important thing, honestly, everything works. Everything works, and it's what do you want to do? Like what feels good to you, and do that, because everything works. What actually works is what feels really good to you. So really focusing on that. And I love that you found that and you're able to articulate that. You're like, yes, this is what I want to do. Like I want to serve my community, and this is how I want to do that. And amazing. And the other thing that you highlighted that I really love, because I've been really into this, like the last quarter and this quarter, this has been, and continuing on, this has been a really important part of my business, is this networking and collaborating. This is like, I don't know why I didn't do this before. Like it's so much fun, one, talking to people, two, you are building an actual community and network, and you're not just going in there like, oh, what can you do for me? You know, like you're going in there with this heart of how can we help each other? How can we support each other? And there's nothing better than that. Like there's literally nothing better than connecting with other business owners who you're on the same page with and who are going to refer people to you, going to help you. Be like, hey, what did you do for this thing? And like you can actually talk to each other and support each other. So I really encourage everybody to also step into that collaboration as well, because it's really, really important and really fun. Like, it's really fun. And you're true, right? It's true that it gets lonely because you're just sitting there, like, in your office, like, on your laptop. Like, you with your kids running around, me with my dogs. And I'm like, they don't talk back, you know? Like, if I tell them things. So it is really important to have people there to support you. So love that. I want to touch on one last thing is let's talk about podcasting. I wanted to, because this is like your thing. So if you were to give maybe like one or two of your top tips or top benefits or like something you want to tell the world about podcasting, I know it's very general, but what would that be?
Well, the number one thing is don't get caught up on the tech. That tends to hold people back. And I always use my coach as an example. She literally will sit in the middle of her bed, record her episodes in her phone, and she has a top 1% podcast. So don't get caught up on what microphone do I need? What setup do I need? Different things like that. Because with time, you will learn, you will grow, your podcast is going to evolve. And I say this all the time too. If you go back and listen to my first episodes too, I'm on episode 105 now. The first episodes, they sucked. And I'm okay with that because you see the progression, you see the growth and everything. But if I hadn't actually hit record and published these episodes, I wouldn't be getting ready to publish episode 106. So the main thing is to get started. And like I said, don't get caught up in the tech and different things like that. So that would be tip number one. The second thing is to really get clear on why you're starting a podcast. So many times people will start a podcast because it sounds fun, everyone else is doing, and then they discover that they hate podcasting. So really get clear on why are you doing this? What do you want to use it for? Is it going to be part of your business? Is it going to be a way for you to build community and network with other people? Like, get crystal clear on that because that's going to drive you. That's going to help you keep going. But if you're not clear on that and you're just doing it because it sounds fun, then you're going to be a pod fade where you barely make it past a few episodes and then you ghost your audience. And you don't want to do that.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, amazing tips and very true. I will say, as somebody who is a newer podcaster, I think that I like to say I'm a podcaster now. I feel like special when I say that. Yes, I'm a podcaster. I'm in some club. That I would say that, yes, in terms of the tech and whatnot, and this is why perhaps scheduling a call with somebody like you is really helpful because then you can get, like, just figure out, like, okay, I need XYZ and period. Okay, like, let's just go. Let's do this thing. I was listening. It's funny how you were talking about the quality and this and that. And yes, people totally get caught up in this. And this is another form of perfectionism, which is another form of imposter syndrome and all of that, right? So excuses not to do things. And similar to your coach, I was listening to Jordan Gill, who we don't know is a big fancy person. And in one of her episodes, she was literally walking her dogs like in the park and just saying that and like talking on her phone. And I was like, if Jordan Gill can do it like that and like get all these, like, it doesn't matter, right? It's about what you have to say. And then also, it's like for me, you know, like I said, this is like my newer podcasting and I stumble on my words a lot. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, I get it across, like, we're fine. And like, not worry about that and not put so much pressure on yourself. And then you just have fun with it because it really is fun. So, and getting clarity on the why, because yeah, the people can do, like, you can have a podcast for so many different reasons. I've seen people do it to get leads. I've seen people do it as the top of funnel. I've seen people do it to nurture their audience, you know, so there's like so many different reasons to have a podcast, and figuring out where this fits in is very important because then you know what to talk about, you know how to format it. It kind of drives everything you're doing from there, right? So yes. Very important. Thank you so much for sharing that. And lastly, let us know, please tell us how we can stay in touch, any gifts, anything else you want to share. This is your time to do that now.
Yeah, so I have my podcast, Mama Turned Mompreneur, and it's all about tips and strategies for using your podcast to generate leads and just simplify your marketing in general. I also have other guest experts that share tips and strategies in their niche, really supporting moms with growing a sustainable business. And I am Mama Turned Mompreneur on everything: Instagram, my website, everything. So that's the best way to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me.